This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Season 3 of the Mission Qualfon podcast. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi, Marisol. 3 seasons. Can you believe that? This is our 3rd season.
This is my 4th podcast, I think, and it's the only one I've ever done a 3rd season. I always seem to leave and end them at season 2. So this is exciting.
Hey, 3rd time's a charm. So this will be our charm season. We also have hit a major milestone. Tell us about that.
We hit 100,000 downloads right over the same week that we had our company's summit this year. So that was awesome and exciting. And that's a huge milestone. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean we have 100,000 subscribers or listeners. What it means is 40 episodes have been consumed 100,000 times. So it's funny because now that was like the goal for me. That's what I had in my head. That was my mind. 2 years. Can we hit this number? And we hit it earlier than the 2 years. Mm-hmm. April would have been 2 years. And since hitting it, and you know this, I was obsessive about the stats. Like I looked every day, sometimes several times a day when we published. Mm-hmm. I would look at the numbers in all different ways. And since we hit it, I'm like, I haven't checked the numbers. Because it becomes about the audience, because that number means we have an audience. It's not a large audience. It's a specific size in the hundreds, a couple hundred, 300, between 300 and 400 that listen to us routinely. And they're from within our company, from outside our company, within the BPO industry, outside the BPO industry. It's really cool. So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
So now the focus is on the audience. It's growing the audience and continuing to provide content that people want to sit through for 30 to 40 minutes.
It's great. And we've got a guest today that is worth sitting through for 30 to 40 minutes. This is great. I'm super excited about today's guest. We'll be hearing from Renea Malara, who is the Director of U.S. Benefits.
Welcome, Renee.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited and a little bit terrified, but thanks so much for having me.
Jeremy, you were telling me before the podcast that you and Renee have a special summit bond.
So Renee and I both were part of a company called Center Partners that was acquired by Qualfon back in 2013 or 14, somewhere around there. So we've known each other for quite a while, probably since 2010 or somewhere around there, a long time. And we just both happened to be at the summit in San Antonio, which was, probably 5 years ago. And we both happened to receive the Shining Star Award at the same time. So we shared the stage together as we received that Shining Star Award. And I think, Renee, if I'm remembering right, we sat next to each other on the way back from the big team building activity we had out at a ranch. If you remember that, do you remember that?
I do remember that a little bit, Jeremy. Yeah, that our paths did cross quite a couple of times during that summit. But yeah, I remember after the team building activity. Yeah,
and so it was a lot of fun. So we are Shining Star alumni, which was very exciting. And obviously I've had the opportunity to work with Renee over the years. So I'm super excited to have you on the podcast, Renee.
Thank you. It's good to work with you again too, Jeremy. That was a special time, certainly, with that Shining Star ceremony and that win. And I'm glad we got to share that.
Oh, well, I have a question. We usually always start with how you ended up at Qualfon. Jeremy kind of shared how you did. that. So maybe you could tell us how you ended up in benefits. Our audience, we have an international audience, so I don't exactly know how it works outside of the U.S., but in the U.S., you are a very important person for us, the employees, because you put together or help put together our benefits package, which includes our healthcare and our 401k. Oh my gosh, we'll go into it all with you, but tell us how you got into that role and how you ended up at Qualfon.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of a story that I like to tell because I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a surprise. So for me, I don't think many people, at least nobody I know, has ever, started off as a 5 or 6 year old and said, oh, I want to be, a benefits director or a benefits manager. It's not usually your typical, dream job that you think of. But as I've come into it, it's been the absolute perfect job for me. And I kind of come into it from a little bit of a personal background in a way. A lot of people know that my daughter has a liver disease. And at a time, she was very, very, very sick. And I made what I call some of the benefits mistakes, learned some benefits lessons in my life. And early on, in my mid-20s and stuff, and really at that point started to dive in and really try to understand and know everything I could know about how benefits plans worked and, what good options were, and really ask the questions, even the questions where I felt like maybe, a little silly asking that, I felt like I should know those. I asked them anyway. And I got into all of the details of it because I learned some expensive lessons during that time, really just being a consumer more on that end of those products, those medical plans, dental plans, that kind of thing. And having it, heightened to an extreme when you have a health concern in your family. And working through those, I found at the time that it was kind of a full-time job actually to really know and understand those and follow those bills and make sure things were paid and claims were paid according to the plan and all of those things. And that was really kind of the beginning of me leaning into that field. For a couple of companies, prior to my term with Center Partners and then subsequently with Qualfon, I started off in kind of more of a HR or person office role and then acquired benefits as one of my duties. So as one of my tasks. And I kind of worked through that and started new plans and put in some onboarding things in place for a couple of childcare centers and actually for, some retail places that I worked at. And I was in Arizona and getting ready to move back to Colorado and looking for a new job opportunity. And we were packing up the house and everything. And my husband looked at an ad that was in the paper for Center Partners for a benefits assistant. And he read it to me as I'm packing boxes. And he says, this sounds like you. And I'm like, okay. So he applies for me and packs up the computer, puts it in the truck. We drive for, quite a ways. And then the next morning I get a phone call from, the person who was handling the interviews, the interviewer schedule at that time, about this job. And I didn't even know the name of the company at the time. Like he didn't even tell me who it was or anything like that. I thought I had a day at least to kind of get settled, but I didn't. So I show up to the interview and they actually think they're expecting my husband because he sent it from his computer and it put his name on it. And so they're expecting my husband and I show up, but it was kind of like just meant to be as we started talking about all of the kind of tasks of it and the research required and all of the pieces of it and the plans that we'd be working in and everything. I really just felt like, God, I really want to be in that department. I really want to do that job. And really the relationships with the people too, even just in the interview, I just felt like I had come home to met my next work family, and it just happened from there. And then so I started off in benefits with Center Partners, but as the assistant. And then over time, people moved around into different roles and stuff like that. And I took on different roles within benefits and then eventually, ended up as the director of U.S. benefits.
Do you look over at your husband and be like, thank you?
I do. It's funny. It was just kind of funny because we were, trying to get that plan down, and he's just like, well, this really sounds like you. I think you should, do this. And he was reading it to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really interested in that. And I guess I wasn't even sure he had really actually pushed apply for it and attach my resume, but he did. And so
Awesome.
When I got the phone call, I was a little bit stunned because I didn't know what I was even talking about at that moment. But yeah, fate completely. I feel like they found me. I feel like benefits found me, and I feel like I found my home, honestly.
Well, I sort of assumed something from working with you, like asking you questions about my benefits over the years or my onboarding experience when I came on. But listening to you, I sort of feel like you're living your total vocation. Like you really, really like your position and your job.
100%. And like I said, a lot of people don't go into or don't think of, I want to grow up and be a benefits director or anything like that. But for me, it is really honestly the perfect fit. At one point in time, I had considered maybe a career in law. And honestly, I feel like benefits has given me kind of the right balance of getting to work with people, getting to be more of that friendly personality, kind of a little bit of project management along with research and solving problems. And so I feel like it's really been a good combination of all of that for me. And so, yeah, I think I'm a good example of total vocation, I think.
Yeah, because I don't want to broad stroke benefits people across the United States, but you have a really positive attitude. Like you enjoy helping people, and I know that you get repeat questions, and I know you get questions that people just haven't read, including myself, on the details. But you always are so pleasant, and you answer the questions. And if there's a situation, I've seen you try to, maneuver to get the answer as quickly as possible, as considerate as possible, for a lot of people. And that takes a lot, because I've known benefits people who are kind of grumpy, to be honest.
Understood. Yeah, certainly. I do think that my personal experiences, with my daughter, and I'm just going to put it out there that she does very well now. She's doing very good. But I think those personal experiences, put a little soft spot in my heart for certain situations. And then two, the financial struggle that benefits and not either choosing the right plan or not knowing how it operates, or just, medical expenses can put on people. I do have definitely have experience with that and have a soft spot in my heart for that as well. But additionally, I think I've been shaped a little bit too, certainly by the influences around me. I feel like there's a lot of people in our company, where we're talking about the mission and putting, how are we helping the people? How are we helping our employees? Having that as a grounding basis, I think has really helped put you in that mind, that frame of mind when you're trying to help make those decisions or help people through things. So certainly I get that experience with Mike Jossie, my supervisor, the chief person officer. It's really about how do our decisions affect the employees and our Qualfon family, and also is there anything else that we can do or any additional pieces we can add in or things that we can change that make that experience better. So I think that there's, several things that have fed into that for me and make me more on that positive end.
Now, probably not smart for me to make a confession in a corporate podcast setting, but I am the worst about not following if I have a question, I always email Renee directly instead of sending it through the proper channels. And Renee has never slapped my hand. She answers my questions. So that's a confession and an apology I want to make to Renee, because I've always if I've had a question, I just shoot Renee an email about it instead of going through the proper channels. So apologies.
I'm guilty of the same thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I apologize, and I am super grateful.
Yeah. No, and I do have, that's kind of one of the things I value honestly about the position I've been in, and even really working through, Jeremy, when we were working through the acquisition stuff when Qualfon, acquired Center Partners, that was really necessary, I think, at the time, to have those personal connections with people and have them feel that they could reach out to a person that would work through stuff. And I like to maintain those those relationships and have people feel that they can reach out to me or anybody on the team and have that experience, because benefits is a personal thing.
Right.
There's a lot of personal information we might get into, and, sometimes some health information, stuff like that. And in order to be effective at helping people through that, sometimes that's necessary. And so I don't ever want anybody to feel that they can't reach out to me, or no, you have to email benefits questions. It's the only way we do this.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my responses will be that I include benefits questions because I need to keep some documentation or some history for somebody else to help us if I'm not around or anything like that. But really still try to keep my hands on it. I do now more and more use a lot of those interactions for training the team to make sure that they're able to provide as much service as they can for individuals as well, but also so that they have that information to be able to be as successful as they can be and doing those things. But
Right.
I welcome those. I still work really closely with a lot of people, so don't feel like you guys are the only ones by any means.
Well,
So
it's a simple solution. You're just never allowed to leave. So you can't go on vacation, can't go anywhere. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you've already kind of alluded to it, and I'd just like to get your thoughts. You mentioned the folks that you work with, and obviously this podcast is called Mission Qualfon, right? So we talk about our mission a lot. What was it like as you were going through this transition of Center Partners being acquired by Qualfon? When you heard about Qualfon's mission, when you heard about Stride's values and all those things, what were your thoughts about that? And then what have you thought or seen, since that transition over the last several years?
So I have a little confession here myself. I was probably one of the biggest skeptics, honestly, when I heard about the mission. I think that in all of my past work experience, I hadn't had anything really even similar introduced to me as a concept. And when I heard it, I thought, how is that going to work? And I just kept thinking, I just don't even see the path. And then even once I kind of saw a path was laid out, I thought, our people aren't going to be real receptive. And that was talking about the center partners, people that I knew and had worked with. I thought, we've had programs, stuff introduced before, and it's around for a while, or maybe it gets a little bit of legs, after some time, but kind of fades out. And I thought, well, okay, we'll kind of see how that goes. But then even over time, as I saw how intentional things were and how direct the process and kind of, there were good processes in place, and there was a good strategic plan around it, and there was really a lot of thought put into it. I felt like, okay, so, I looked at it more than as a program kind of thing, not really as really more of the mission. And I thought, okay, well, we can see how that works, and that can build in a little bit. But then I have to say, when it really hit home for me the most, that, wow, this is it's a different mindset. It's a whole different way of looking at yourself and what you do and how the business operates, and it puts a different lens in front of you for it, I think. And that was discussing it with Roberto Sanchez Melara, and also too, at the time, Alejandro. We really had some amazing people that really kind of explained it more, and you saw it come through just in the passion and way they talked about it, that you really realize that those people live it, and they live that with very, very deep intent, I think. And then being fortunate enough to go to some of the summit experiences and meeting the Gonzalez family, and it really is life-changing, I feel like. Certainly, Marisol's alluded to the Mexico City Summit several times. That one was really, really touching for me as well. I think I had similar feelings from that one that Marisol has mentioned multiple times. But like I said, I started off as a skeptic, probably one of the bigger ones. And several of the people around me, too, were skeptics initially. And it's just funny as you see all the intent and the work behind it. It just doesn't happen. It has to be lived. And I really think that the team that initially was part of that acquisition group that, helped come and explain it to us and helped try to install the mission into our practices and all of that. I think that they really helped bring us along with that by showing how much work they put into it, how they live it, and how much intent is behind it.
I'm right there with you. I was a huge cynic about, just the business model as a whole, just, the BPO business. And I thought, it sounds like a charming mission statement. And yes, I knew some players and I thought, they're nice people, great business people, but it wasn't until it's like you have to, like you said, you have to kind of experience it and really see the truth of it in other people and how they live it to understand. Because I get made fun of when I talk about the mission with like my friends, people outside of our company. They think I'm a fanatical freak. They're just like they roll their eyes. They don't want to hear about it anymore because it's just, I don't know, it's just something that, I think Jeremy and I are trying to do this with the podcast is kind of share it with people because it is legitimate. It's not a marketing ploy. It's not a line that we use. It's something that the company truly lives. It's a breathing, living action that we take every day. And I think I feel that it challenges us. Our mission statement is be the best and make each person's life better. And we focus so much on that latter part about making each person's life better. But I personally find the first part, like be the best, like that's a big challenge. And then every single day, and I've said this before, I fail miserably every single day, but it's nice to work for a company that challenges you to strive to do that. Mediocrity is not our goal.
Right.
And I love that. I love being part of a group of people that challenges themselves to do that. And you were definitely someone like that, Renee. I can say that because I've seen you put things together for people. And I'm like I said, you seem to really do it from the heart. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And, I agree on the being the best part of that. That is, that's a tall order. Mm-hmm. And I think so many of us take that, certainly we all want to do well and that kind of stuff. But I know that there's, groups of us who take that so personally. But it's also nice to have that support from our company when you talk about failing and failing every day. Yeah, I fail at things all the time. And, we're allowed to fail forward, right? So, I think that is really saying, okay, this didn't work so well, let's circle back and keeping in mind, the end goal is always trying to make people's lives better and do better. And I really appreciate that about our company and how that mission drives that too.
So Renee, I have a question. So I've seen people try to, startup companies begin to put together benefit packages for their employees. And it's always amazed me how you start with a blank slate. And well, the first thing that amazes me is the cost, to be honest. And then it's the, sitting through all the different, I would say, pitches, and then really drilling down to put together like all these different variables for the employee. Any employer can go in with the best intentions and come out totally surprised with what can actually be put together because it's just so many variables. And I was just wondering if you could share with the audience what is that like because you do this every single year. It's not a one and done. You put together our benefits every single year. And obviously, we can tell from the earlier questions how passionate you are about this. How does that start? What does that process look like?
I kind of tie it into both selecting the benefits plans as well as open enrollment, the process kind of together because, one has to start off and could drastically change by the results of another. So really, it's kind of funny, but open enrollment, those dates and the window, that's being filtered. And the idea of it is kind of going through my mind during the open enrollment before it. So during open enrollment this year, I am planning out what dates I'd like to have open enrollment for the next upcoming year. So a lot of that depends on, payroll timing, what's going on in the business. how the holidays fall, just different things like that. And then, a lot of that is dependent upon when we can get information back from the carriers. And so that's kind of one of the big pieces, the big steps in that puzzle. So when we talk about open enrollment, of course, we have dates and we have a plan and everything, but we can't do any of that without knowing what plans we're going to offer, knowing what those costs are, being able to have time to set that up in a system, making sure that we have enough time on the back end to get deductions set up and files over to carriers and those kinds of things. So we started a lot earlier than a lot of people would think. So, like I said, I'm picking those enrollment dates pretty much, a year in advance. They change because as we have information filtered back to us, it's not always in the time frame I would like or the time frame that works well. So that can change things a lot. But that open enrollment window is chosen pretty early. So then I would say kind of our next step is we really go through the open enrollment kind of post-mortem and just really deciding what worked well, what didn't work, what's working well in the plans, what kind of inquiries did we get from employees, what new benefit plans would they like to see, what features in certain plans would they like to have, or we even look at enrollment percentages, are very many people, of all the possible people that are eligible for a plan, how many are electing it? Is this still an important plan to our people? All of those kind of things go into, okay, here's our goals. We'd like to offer these plans, this set of plans for the next year. And so we kind of start off with that. Then we, start off about the processes too, kind of what worked well in those processes. Was open enrollment long enough? Was the timing okay? Was the communication okay? That kind of stuff. Did the system work like we wanted? So we think about all of those things. And that probably we'll do that postmortem probably the end of January, because to us, we're still not really through open enrollment until all the deductions have passed, which is happening this Friday. And this is being recorded in January. So January 14th, we'll have that kind of under our belt. And so for me, that signifies the end of open enrollment. So we start that process of determining those goals probably the end of January, beginning of February. And then we get that and we discuss that with our strategic partners. That's kind of the next step. And our strategic partners are going to be, like our brokers. They help us work through certain parts of things. And then also our benefits administration system partners, what is possible for them? What changes do they have coming up? What changes do we need to see? And then we work with our incumbent carriers too. So the carriers that we have in the current year. So, whoever is currently handling our medical plan, our dental plan, vision plans, those kind of things, we let them know our goals and let them know what we're looking for and start telling them that information so that they can start gathering the data we need and get some, we can get some analytics around it so we can make some good decisions. And we probably start communicating that, I'm going to say April. April's not really too early for that. And then in May, the conversations get a little bit more direct. We have some claims data that we're looking at that point. And we're going over our claims data, which drives a lot of the decisions. Basically, claims data is what really kind of determines the pricing for plans going forward. And that's the same whether you are, using a fully insured method where the carrier is providing the plan for you, or whether you're using a self-funded method where you as the company own the plan and you're paying for the claims, but you're paying a big carrier to administer your claims. So I think that either way, pricing determines a lot. And it determines a lot on what you can offer because it has to fit, one, within a budget, and two, can you keep it affordable for employees? And that's a big driving factor. And a lot of times we can't get that data back until maybe mid-September, could be even late September. And so when you think about that window, it's a very short window from that point. And so even at that point, once we get pricing back, then there's a whole new, I'd say, process or project that starts. Now we look at the pricing and we compare it to, what else is out there from other carriers, what other plan options are there, how can we make adjustments that make this pricing a little bit more affordable for us, or do we have a little bit of room here to add in some extra features, or what compliance or regulatory changes have come up that change that pricing? So that part of it then also starts to drive into, let's start modeling out the costs. And this is where this piece of it, I think, is one thing that a lot of people don't maybe know is part of this process. But it is like a 4-week process, just the costs, because there will be multiple rounds of modeling out these costs that are done. And Jim Gilman, our CFO, really takes the lead on this and does the heavy lifting on this. And it's so great to have somebody who knows so much about this be able to take the reins in and really look at this. And he has a way of really dissecting things apart to really make sure that each piece is correct and how it should be, and really looking at how we can put different options together to come out with how can we work within a budget, but how can we still keep it as cost effective as we can for employees while still offering them the coverage they need and being compliant. And that's kind of the end goal. But that process alone, just the cost after we've got everything else, is really a 4-week process. And so that's kind of the overall part of it.
Well, I think, it takes all kinds to make a company work. And I'm grateful that you and Jim have that ability, because I'm the type of person that when you're presenting the different options for us, it's like I can't. It's like I become, it's like a screen goes over my brain, because
it's easy to gloss over, and
it's like I don't understand. So I appreciate that, because it is nice, especially as a single mom, to know that there's this group of people who are looking out for us and putting together the best package for us. It's definitely a benefit. So, thank you.
Great. Another thing I would say about that is we kind of start off with some goals in mind. We need to be good financial stewards of the company's funds, and with U.S. benefits being one of the top 5 expenses for the company total, it's a very high dollar amount. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and so thankful for Jim and his skill in that. And then making sure that we offer the plans that are in line with what employees need and want, and that meet the needs of their families. That there's a lot of input there too. Our strategic partners help us. Mike Jossi has a lot of experience in setting up benefits plans for other companies, and he gives a lot of really valuable input. We reach out to the business leaders, and certainly then things are presented to Doug Carney and Mike Morrow. And everybody has this input on it. And when we end up with the final decision, we've really worked with a lot of different people throughout the company and really gotten a lot of perspective. And another piece of that perspective is employees and the information that they give us when they email benefits questions, or we talk to them about things. People will mention things about how a certain plan's working. We'll look into that, and we'll see if maybe we need to make a change there. Are people generally happy with the carriers, generally happy with the plans? Then maybe we continue. There's just a lot of pieces that go into it, and we try to get as much input as we can. And we certainly have a lot of help. And then even the benefits team too, as they are using different tools and administration through the plans, sometimes the administration that happens behind the scenes, there's a lot that tells us. So, if a plan is, if we're working with a carrier and they are not real responsive, and maybe our bills are incorrect and different things like that, you can make some assumptions there that maybe claims aren't processed well. Maybe the employee experience isn't great. And so we can look into different things that way and then make changes that way too. So there's a lot of different things that by the time we're at a final decision, there's a lot of different input. It's not all financial, and it's not all just plan-based. It's really a very balanced combination of all of that. And I'm thankful to have the experience that I've had to know all of that goes behind it, because I think there's sometimes the assumption is you received a renewal maybe from a carrier and you just took what they had, whatever was cheapest. And that's not how it goes at all.
Renee, you mentioned, and I love the way you said this, that there probably aren't many 5-year-olds that say, when I grow up, I want to be a benefits administrator. I love that.
Every time she says that, I have this image of like a little 5-year-old.
Yes.
Little suitcase.
It's time for annual enrollments. Let's play annual enrollments. But I would like to ask this question. You've done what you do for quite a while. What input or advice might you have for that new agent who's just starting out? And obviously the entryway is you're an agent. You start with the BPO working as an agent for 95% of us, right? But maybe that's not their end goal. So what advice might you have for that new employee that maybe would like to, build a career here at Qualfon, but maybe in a different field, maybe in your field, maybe in a different line of work? But what advice might you have for someone just starting out at Qualfon?
Okay, that's a big question. I think. I think if somebody were interested in, working in a benefits field, kind of the main, I would say, skills and abilities that you might need would be more along the lines of, you got to be a really good communicator. I think not. Certainly verbally helps. We do a lot of presentations, so we have to have meetings with people too, and be able to communicate somewhat complicated, not super exciting topics. That's one thing, but really good written communication, but also be willing to research, dig in and do some work. The initial question may seem easy when it comes into benefits questions, but when I'm training a new person, I tell them, you need to look at every source of information you have available to you before you answer the question, because a lot of times people have a general idea what they want to ask, but maybe they don't use the same terminology that we're used to, or something like that. And so we really want to make sure that we are answering the question correctly, because it can have a big impact. And we talk about the impact of our responses quite a bit. So research is a big part of it. And we talk about internal research or research in our internal systems, but also to legislative research, compliance research with our brokers. There's a lot that goes into that. And so I think that those are some of the types of things that to kind of give somebody an idea of what it's like to work in there, just in the benefits department. But aside from that, if it's something that you're interested in within Qualfon specific, I would say really let us know of your interest. We can certainly give you some ideas of either classes or some of the Coursera work or anything through our internal programs that can help you kind of get to that point. But yeah, I mean, we're always willing to talk to people and help them figure out what a next step might be, or ensure that they're really interested.
So Renee, I'm the student in the back of the class struggling through a benefits presentation. What advice do you have for any employee when it comes to benefits?
Great question, because I think this is an important question, honestly. It is, if you find it confusing, it's because it is, and it's not easy to understand. It's not maybe a one conversation topic. Typically, when you're first getting into benefits, a lot of us are used to, we're on our parents' plans. We get off of our plans, off of our parents' plans. We're getting ready to elect our own plans. Or we maybe haven't typically needed plans, and now we're, at that position where we're electing maybe plans for the first time, or even just being new to the company. The plans are different. Different things come into play there, and that's kind of what your benefits team is here for. We get paid to look into all of that stuff and figure it out for you. So the questions that you have, they're very valid, and you should ask them. And even if you don't quite know what you should ask, you could even just email us, I know nothing about this. What is important? I listened to the presentation, I'm lost. Whatever it is about that, because it's not an easy topic. And I think that just the climate in benefits has changed. It used to be a lot simpler where, you signed up for a plan, you handed somebody a card, things were paid, and that's how it went. And it's not really that way anymore. You kind of have to work your benefits to get what you need to out of them. So I kind of say work your plans, use your plans, but there are big decisions. And I talked earlier about how I kind of came into benefits and how I learned what I call made the benefits mistake or benefits lesson. I chose a very wrong plan for what I needed, and I paid a lot of money because of it. And I try to limit that impact on people. And so, when you have certain concerns or certain conditions or certain family members that you need to bring into your plan or anything like that, and you have questions, definitely ask them. It really can save you a lot of money. It can save you a lot of time by trying to go through claims. We can help you out a lot with that. And it's really hard to give you enough information in the beginning or in a 1 hour meeting or in a certain setting to really address everybody's concerns, right? So I think that in that case, I would really say, make sure that you understand your plans and know your plans that will work. And we can really help you figure that out, what's best for you and your family.
And I can validate that you do that for us, because I know that I have asked questions, which I have inherently thought are dumb questions to ask that I didn't understand.
Yeah, never a dumb question with benefits, because I can tell you, even if it was true at one point in time, or you knew the answer at one point in time, it could have very well changed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you. See, you didn't have to be terrified. Are you not that bad, right?
You made it nice for me, so I feel really good.
Everyone's not everyone, but mostly we get that. And Jeremy and I, we're not hard. We're not journalists. We just want to hear your story. And you had a great story to share with us. So I do appreciate everything you do. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. This was fun. Not so terrifying, more fun.
That was a great interview, and Renee is awesome. And I just wanted to add a quick little update. As we mentioned at the beginning, we've been doing our summit all week. And Renee mentioned that she received the Shining Star Award back in 2017. Well, guess what? And this is very rare. I think it's maybe happened one or two times in the history of the company. Renee just this week received for the second time the Shining Star Award. So you see the value that she brings to the organization and how much she is appreciated for what she does. I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was fantastic. Yes, especially thinking of the years we've had with COVID. Having someone as diligent in the role that she does for all of us has just been, it's a blessing.
For sure.
And I was thrilled. I was thrilled that she had just posted in the chat on our app her older award. And so I had commented after she won, I'm like, well, now you have bookends.
That's right.
So no, congratulations, Renee. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. I know this one may have gone a little longer than usual, but we're just getting used to our season 3 startup. So thank you for joining us along this journey, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, Marisol.
Bye, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.